rarely do we see female writers and female directors playing this genre. So what attracted you to this project and what do you want to bring to it?
Well, I've had to think about, I've been working on the movie for a while now, so I've had to think about that very question quite a bit. And I think there's something, I think it's actually fairly traditional that there be a female heroine in a horror film. I think some of my favorite movies anyway had female heroines. But what's interesting about this movie is that both the monster and the heroine are female, and the two characters can sort of play off of one another. And in my mind, there could be a little bit of an exploration of that idea of femininity or femaleness, having both a lot of strength, but also some kind of danger to it.
And the other interesting thing that is when you see horror films and the treatment of sex in horror films, you bring, it's the Diablo script essentially which brings this to life. Can you talk a bit about the frankness and the comedy of the sex scene, which I think if you look at any other horror film, it's always just kind of glamour and glossed over. But here, there's the failings, there's the fumblings, the way that they prepare for the event.
Well, in the script, and I hope in the finished film, I always felt that there was the possibility to do something really sort of awkward and real with the depiction of sex in the movie, and even the depiction of sort of Jennifer's kind of movie seductions. It feels like she's working out of a playbook in a way, and that in some way Needy and Chip particularly have a much more awkward and engaged and very loving and tender kind of approach to one another, even when it's very, very comic. And there's also a sexual component between Jennifer and Needy, and I think that that's a very sort of real aspect of teenage relationships as well. So to me it was important that there be not necessarily a lack of romance in the depiction of sex, but a lack of easiness to all of it, because it's not always that easy.
And can you also talk a bit about obviously Diablo's script really shines in this, and what's it like to get a script? What's it like to get a script full of Diablo Codyisms, as we call them now? And how do you do you understand where she's coming from with all of her lingo?
Oh yeah, for me, Diablo is just writing in a vernacular that feels at times heightened, but sometimes when I listen to teenagers talk, I feel like they're always talking in a heightened vernacular. And I think, when I think of some of the first films that I saw as a teenager that made me want to make movies, it was Valley Girl, it was Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and those movies have a tremendous amount of slang that you have to kind of listen to more than once to really sort of pick up all of the humor and the meanings of it. So for me, the challenge was just making sure that there was a balance struck between the comedy and that kind of heightened, more sometimes theatrical language, with the horror and the emotional engagement that we hopefully feel for the characters.
And the last question I'll open up the floor, but I wanted to talk to you about the soundtrack plays a great deal in setting up the emotion and the action sequences. Just talk about how you decided to choose the songs you did, in particular the song when Colin is singing it as he's going off to his date with Jennifer.
I think teen movies are an incredible opportunity to explore a lot of different kinds of music, because teenagers, young people listen to so many different kinds of music, and there can be both nostalgia for older songs and something very fresh with new songs. And of course there's also the component in the movie of a sort of more disposable pop song which plays throughout the movie and is meant to be very, very catchy but sort of drive you insane a little bit. And which I hope it did. And so in finding that song and figuring out what that would be, then it was kind of easier to figure out the realm of the music beyond that. And I felt for Colin, in that scene when he drives to see Jennifer for what he thinks is their first date, I kind of wanted to honor a sequence in Silence of the Lambs where Buffalo Bill's primary victim is driving driving and singing at the top of her lungs, Tom Petty's American Girl. And I always felt like so attached to that character because I got to see her in a private moment. And I felt if we got to see Colin singing at the top of his lungs, just so tragically, naively excited to see Jennifer, maybe there would be a little bit of a moment of connection with him because, he's a secondary character, and I just feel